Isekai is an interesting and polarizing genre for anime. Some people hate isekai with every fiber of their being, wishing the entire genre to be deleted from existence. Others fall in love with it, enjoying the variety it can provide, while grinding through every single title that's released. I'd like to think I fall into a middle category, with a slight lean towards positivity. I try not to judge a show preemptively just because it belongs to a certain genre. I'll watch literally anything as long as it may be interesting, but I do temper my expectations a bit for certain shows. Man, Isekai really do love their long titles though. Like, I get it. The title is really long, and it's literally the synopsis of the show in order to get my attention, and it unfortunately keeps working. It's easy for an isekai to grow an audience since many of them start off with a promising or weird premise drawing viewers like myself in. For example, I watched Reborn as a vending machine because of how bizarre the concept sounded, and ended up enjoying it. Do you know why? Because it took its weird premise and went all in with it, creating a decently crafted story centered around vending machines. It also helps that in the case of this anime, it was funny. I think this is where many isekai start to struggle. They struggle following through with their original idea while also keeping it entertaining after the beginning of it. Many of them forget what makes them unique to begin with as they evolve in both writing and quality. They start to become like every other isekai, or very generic, eventually becoming what everyone hates most about the genre. In some cases, the writing is both lazy and poor from the very beginning, and you can usually tell that right away. We are back with round 4 of Reddit made me watch this anime. A while back, there was a list created by Reddit that included what they claimed to be 100 underrated anime. As a person who loves looking for underrated shows, it intrigued me so much that I decided to start watching them, to see if Reddit had any underrated gems that I've yet to watch. For this series, I select an anime from this list of 100, watch it, and tell you if it's worth your time checking out, needing at least a 7.5 out of 10 rating to be considered as underrated. Thus far, I've had a mixed experience watching some of these recommendations. I've watched a really good anime, a solid one, and a really bad one. Thus far, Reddit is 11 and 10 overall, and 1 and 2 with new shows watched for this series. I don't know why, but I feel like the isekai genre was calling my name, so I looked through that section and picked out The Executioner and Her Way of Life. This show is an example of having an interesting twist on the isekai genre, but there's some problems with it. The word "some" here might be an understatement though. The Executioner and Her Way of Life follows an isekai boy named Misc. Oh wait, he's killed immediately by the Executioner and actual main character, Menno. Her job as Executioner is to kill those summoned to this world named Lost Ones, since it's not only taboo for them to be summoned in the first place, but also because of the threat they pose. Lost Ones have something called pure concepts attached to their souls. Pure concepts are unique abilities that can distort the shape of the world they live in, or to simplify it, Lost Ones possess superpowers. The more a Lost One uses their pure concept, the closer it gets to eating away at their mind and taking over, leading to calamity. There's been 4 instances of such an occurrence in this world, being labeled as tragic human errors, and each one has led to monumental disasters. It's an executioner's job to prevent more errors from occurring by killing these Lost Ones. Yes, killing is obviously wrong, but in this case it can be justified since it is for the greater good. Misc wasn't the only Lost One recently transported to this world. A girl named Akari was as well. However, killing Akari proves difficult because her pure concept is time, as Executioner Menno quickly finds out. Akari has the ability to rewind time even upon death, shown to us when Menno attempts to kill her. So Menno pretends to be Akari's friend, and throughout The Executioner and Her Way of Life, the duo of girls travel throughout the lands, as Menno tries to find a suitable way to actually kill her. Along their travels, there's several opposing factions that they must deal with, including an evil archbishop, who is supposed to be on Menno's side. Then there's also one of the 4 tragic human errors, known as Pandemonium, representing the pure concept of chaos. The Executioner and Her Way of Life takes an interesting approach to the isekai genre. Most isekai focus on the person that goes to another world, but in the case of The Executioner and Her Way of Life, it flips the focus. Here, it focuses on the people of this world who have to deal with those isekai'd and the problems they end up causing. By focusing on the people native to this world, you get a different viewpoint than you are accustomed to seeing. You are able to understand the feeling of those who belong to this world, feelings of resentment and hatred, but others recognize an opportunity. The people who actually belong to this world have not only implemented new technological ideas from those that are isekai, but others plan on using Lost One's pure concepts for their own nefarious purposes. Combine this different take on an isekai with a dark and interesting premise to start the anime, and you have a solid foundation for the show. It's the type of start that you hope for in an isekai, taking whatever idea that makes it unique and embracing it fully. I had high hopes for this anime when Menno kills Misc at the beginning. I was like, sweet! A strong female character combined with a morally gray idea. It's at least an interesting start. This anime should be dark as Menno goes around killing lost ones and starts to question whether what she is doing is right or not, aka growing a conscience. Is she being told everything, or is she being manipulated by others? Is Menno doing what's right, and should she continue with her duties? The character's actions and emotions should visibly change throughout the anime as Menno starts to doubt what she's been doing. Menno has seen firsthand what pure concepts are capable of, and it definitely seems like her job as an executioner is both necessary and justified since it's for the safety and betterment of the world. However, at the same time, there's a moral dilemma here, since killing people isn't right, obviously. Even after killing Misc, who was corrupted the second he realized he had power, Menno questions whether what she is doing is still right. As the execution in her way of life progresses, it's clear that Menno is saddened by her job because she doesn't think that lost ones deserve to die. They ain't asked to be transported to this world, they are summoned here, and they aren't inherently evil. The power is what corrupts them. With Misc's execution, even the viewer should think, yeah, she was right in killing him, while yet another opposing thought should be, what is the bigger picture like, and are we being told everything? Throughout the anime, she continues to struggle, which is showcased through her unwillingness to kill Akari until she's reminded of her duties once again. It definitely seems like Menno is trying to find a way to keep Akari alive, whether it's by finding a way to send her back to her original world, or by finding a way to keep her pure concept in check. The execution in her way of life has a cool starting concept, but that's basically where the positives of the anime end, since the overall writing of it is abysmal. I had so many problems with the executioner and her way of life, but the biggest one has to be the main characters, Menno and Akari. Neither of them are interesting or entertaining in the slightest, being very bland characters with little to absolutely zero depth. Now, Akari being boring is understandable since it's important for the story's plot. See, Akari is both aware of and doesn't actually know that Menno is trying to kill her. It's weird, but hear me out. There's two versions of Akari within the same body. The husk version of Akari that we usually see, and the aware version of herself. Menno has failed several times already trying to kill her, forcing Akari to rewind time, allowing Menno yet another chance to do so. Akari states that Menno must be the one to kill her. I assume the reason why Menno must be the killer is to ultimately save her life, otherwise both of them would die, and Akari would much rather have somebody between the two of them live. We see glimpses where Menno fails and is killed in the process, which led me to this theory. Whenever a situation isn't normal, or there's a looming threat, the Akari that has experienced all of these failed executions steps out to help Menno in the overwhelming odds she faces. Otherwise, we usually see the husk version of Akari that is memory wiped as she seeks both love and attention from Menno. I like the true version of Akari because she's interesting. The memory wiped version, aka the one we see most often, isn't good and is really just annoying. Most of the conversations between Husk, Akari, and Menno are boring, usually going for humor or attention seeking instead of trying to build a genuine relationship between the two characters. The other reason why Akari being boring is understandable is to make sure Menno is unaware of how much Akari has used her powers thus far. With each use of her time regression powers, Akari slowly forgets what makes her her. Akari wipes her own memory so that she doesn't tip off Menno of another problem, the fact that she's used her power plenty of times thus far. She's boring because of all of her memories besides her love of Menno are erased. Towards the end of the anime, it's revealed Akari remembers so little of her past, indicating she's nearing a breaking point, where she might become yet another tragic human error. However, it seems that she doesn't want this journey to end, instead wanting it to last as long as possible. She's hoping that her powers hold on long enough for Menno to complete her duty. Menno's boringness stems from what I think is a very poor writing decision. The flashback showcasing how her town was destroyed and ultimately why she became an executioner. Her hometown was used as a testing grounds for the evil Archbishop Orwell's blanching, and Menno was caught in it, but lucky enough to survive. Because of the blanching, Menno forgot about her past and she became a blank slate, a husk just like Akari is, ready to be used by others. This led to her becoming the perfect executioner since it erased any emotions from her, and that's why I say she's not interesting. It's fine to have one character losing their memories within the story, but having both characters being uninteresting husks does not make for an entertaining or good show. Since this is the case, the character growth for both Akari and Menno is so painfully slow to non-existent. This ultimately led to me struggling to finish the show because it's just not good. I hated much of the dialogue between Menno and Akari since it usually ended up being weird and affection-seeking, which didn't fit the overall tone of the anime. I'd rather watch paint dry than listen to these two characters talk to one another. I feel like if Momo, Menno's assistant, was the main character within this idea, it would have been better, since she shows more emotions than the boring Menno, but even she is very annoying. The entire cast of characters is unlikable except Princess Ashina, who isn't even that great, but at least she's tolerable. The pacing was extremely fast throughout the anime, but the first couple of episodes were especially so. It would have been better if the anime slowed down at least a little bit, let the relationship between Menno and Akari grow, while filling out other necessary parts of the story, like world building and the tragic human errors. Menno and Akari's relationship overall just felt weird and unnatural since most peaceful moments between them were spent with Akari fawning over Menno, like I said earlier. Ultimately, the entire idea was just rushed. There are far too many flashbacks throughout the show, which made it more confusing than it should have been. Flashbacks should be used sparingly, definitely not as frequent as they were in this anime. The overuse of flashbacks gave us a reason to stick around, because the future of this idea is interesting, but the entirety of this anime is so awful that it's ultimately not worth sticking through with it until the end, since almost none of the flashbacks get even remotely answered or expanded upon. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the Executioner and Her Way of Life's anime does not do the source material from the light novel justice. I haven't read the source material, so I cannot confirm this, but at times throughout the anime I felt like necessary components or tidbits of knowledge necessary to make the story interesting or add depth to it were deliberately left out. Because of this, the world building is awful, and the same can be said of the explanation of magic and pure concepts within this world. It is so bare bones and not expanded upon enough that it leaves something to be desired. The Execution and Her Way of Life has a solid starting idea, but the writing and execution of it is so poor, creating an overall awful finished product. I also want to point out that the animation at several points was pretty awful, with the worst part being frequently reused animation loops. I don't mind the occasional moments of poor animation, but the lazy animation loops were hard to overlook. There was also a poorly done CGI monster at the end of the season, which you would think I'd hate on too, but I actually liked it. Pandemonium, a tragic human error who turned into this monster, loves B-movies, so the crappy CGI monster makes sense for her design, and I appreciated that attention to detail. If that animation was done purposefully, well done. Give whoever thought of that a raise. The Execution and Her Way of Life has an okay concept, but there are anime out there that do a much better job with certain parts of it. For example, a more interesting Please Kill Me story is Angels of Death. Talentless Nana does a much better job with a morally gray main character that's told by her superiors to kill people for the so-called betterment of the world. Well, there's more to that story as well, but I don't want to get into it. Coincidentally, Talentless Nana is also on this underrated gem Reddit list, and I actually agree that it's an underrated gem. I understand why people think this is underrated since it's a unique concept for an isekai, but there's so many glaring problems with it. I don't understand how others can overlook the sheer amount of bad and like it just for the general idea of it being a different and darker isekai. It had some exciting moments, but overall everything was so subpar. So in summary, the anime is a decent starting premise, but bad characters, bad writing, and bad world building. I think The Executioner and Her Way of Life is garbage, and it gets a rating of a 3 out of 10. Overall, if you're looking for something to watch, stay away from this anime. It's one of those ideas that with much better writing could have been something better, but ultimately something you should skip out on watching. Maybe the light novel it originates from is better? I sure hope so, at least. If you've both read and watched it, tell me in the comments. I'm interested if it is better light novel wise. Reddit moves to a record of 500, 11 and 11 overall, and 1 in 3 for a new underrated anime in this list. I'm really hoping for something better next time, especially since 2 of these shows now have been awful. That's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.